Before we dive into this incredible story of hidden genius and arrogance, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on our daily stories of justice and truth. And if you believe that respect should be earned, not bought, hit that like button right now. Let's get into it. The hum of the server room was the only music Elias Thorne needed. At 2 a.m., the headquarters of Sterling Key Solutions was a mausoleum of glass and steel, bathed in the soft, blue emergency lighting that made the polished floors look like deep water. Elias adjusted his belt. It was heavy with the tools of his trade, a flashlight, a set of master keys, and a radio that rarely crackled. He was 68 years old, a man who moved with a slow, deliberate gait that younger employees mistook for fatigue. They didn't see the precision in his steps. They didn't see that his eyes, framed by wire-rimmed glasses and set deep in a face weathered by time, missed nothing. To the 300 employees of Sterling Key, Elias was just the night watch. He was the black man in the polyester uniform who checked the locks, emptied the bins when the janitorial staff was short-handed, and nodded politely when the hotshot developers burned the midnight oil. Tonight, the 40th floor was empty, save for the glowing office of Marcus Sterling. Marcus was the CEO, a 27-year-old prodigy who had been featured in Forbes 30 Under 30 3 years running. He was brilliant, charismatic, and insufferably arrogant. He was currently building the Citadel, a cybersecurity infrastructure marketed as the world's first impenetrable network. Elias paused outside the glass walls of the main conference room. On the massive whiteboard, a chaotic sprawl of algorithms and flowcharts was drawn in red and black marker. It was the core architecture for the Citadel. Elias sighed. He shouldn't look. It wasn't his business. But the pattern caught his eye. It was a recursive loop meant to encrypt data packets using a polymorphic key. It was clever. Very modern. And it was flawed. He stepped inside. The air smelled of stale coffee and dry erase markers. He looked at the code logic written on the board. If function A calls pointer B without clearing the cache registry, Elias muttered to himself. He picked up a black marker. His hand hovered. He knew the rules. Observe and report. Do not touch. But this wasn't just code to Elias. This was a language he had helped write before Marcus Sterling was even born. The specific syntax used here, a derivation of Ada and assembly language, was hauntingly familiar. Elias capped the marker. He didn't change the code. Instead, he wrote a tiny note in the bottom corner of the board, barely an inch high. Stack Overflow vulnerability in Sector 7. The loop doesn't close. Check the 1994 DARPA protocols. He wiped the marker residue from his fingers, checked the window locks, and vanished into the stairwell. The next morning, the conference room was a war zone of stress. Marcus Sterling paced in front of the whiteboard, wearing a t-shirt that cost more than Elias's car. Who wrote this? Marcus barked, pointing at the tiny note in the corner. His lead engineer, a nervous man named Kevin, adjusted his glasses. We don't know, Marcus. We came in and it was there. Well, did you check it? Check what? The Stack Overflow vulnerability. Marcus threw a stress ball against the glass wall. Is it real? Kevin swallowed hard. Actually, yes. We ran a simulation this morning. If we had launched the Citadel with that loop open, a brute force attack could have crashed the whole grid in 12 minutes. Whoever wrote this saved us from $1 billion recall. Marcus narrowed his eyes. He didn't like being saved. He liked being the savior. Check the security cameras. Now. 10 minutes later, the team was huddled around a monitor. The footage was grainy, black and white night vision. They watched as the old night watchman walked in, stared at the board for a full minute, wrote the note with a steady hand, and walked out. The security guard? Kevin laughed nervously. Elias? No way. He must have seen it on a movie or something. Marcus stared at the screen. Bring him to me. Tonight. Before his shift starts. Elias was surprised when he was summoned to the penthouse office at 7 p.m. The sun was setting, casting long orange shadows across the city skyline. Marcus sat behind a desk made of reclaimed airplane wing aluminum. He didn't stand up when Elias entered. Have a seat, Elias, Marcus said, gesturing to a low leather chair that forced Elias to look up at him. Is there a problem, Mr. Sterling? Did I miss a checkpoint? Elias asked, his voice calm, deep, and steady. No. You didn't miss anything. In fact, you saw too much. Marcus spun a pen in his fingers. You vandalized my whiteboard. I left a note, sir. I wouldn't call it vandalism. You wrote about a Stack Overflow. Where did you hear that term? Did you overhear my engineers talking? Marcus leaned forward, his eyes predatory. He suspected corporate espionage. Perhaps Elias was a plant from a rival company. Elias adjusted his uniform cap, placing it on his knee. I didn't hear it, sir. I saw it. The logic stream in your encryption algorithm creates an infinite recursive call if the variable hits 0. It's a classic error in dynamic memory allocation. The room went silent. The technical jargon rolled off Elias's tongue with the ease of a man ordering coffee. Marcus blinked. You know C++? And Python. And Fortran. And COBOL. And assembly, Elias said softly. Marcus laughed, a sharp, incredulous sound. Right. The night watchman is a coding wizard. Let me guess, you watched a few YouTube tutorials? Something like that. Marcus stood up and walked around the desk. He looked at Elias with a mix of amusement and pity. Look, Elias, I appreciate the tip. It was a lucky guess. But stick to the doors and windows, okay? Leave the thinking to the people with the degrees. Elias stood up slowly. He was 3 inches taller than Marcus. Respectfully, Mr. Sterling, a degree proves you paid tuition. It doesn't prove you understand the architecture. Marcus's ego flared. He couldn't let the old man have the last word. A wicked idea formed in his mind. You know what, Elias? You're right. I shouldn't dismiss you. Marcus smiled, showing too many teeth. Next week is the Global Security Expo in D.C. Sterling is unveiling the Citadel. I want you to come. Sir? As my guest. In fact, I want you to sit front row. If you think you know so much about architecture, come see how the pros do it. I'll even pay for your suit. It'll be a learning experience for you. It was a mockery. Elias knew it. Marcus wanted to parade him around, perhaps make a joke out of him to his tech bro friends, the janitor genius who got lucky once. Elias looked into Marcus's eyes. He saw insecurity masked by arrogance. I'll be there, Elias said. The Global Security Expo was the Super Bowl of the defense and tech industry. The convention center in Washington, D.C., was packed with military contractors, government officials, and tech moguls. Drones buzzed overhead, and massive screens displayed biometric data. Marcus Sterling was in his element. He moved through the crowd like a shark, shaking hands and flashing smiles. Elias walked a few paces behind him, wearing a simple, ill-fitting suit Marcus's assistant had rented for him. Over here, Elias, Marcus called out, waving him over to a group of investors. This is Elias, the head of our physical perimeter security. The investors laughed. He keeps the doors locked at night. Essential work, really? Elias nodded politely, ignoring the slight. He scanned the room. He wasn't looking for investors. He was looking for faces he hadn't seen in 30 years. The keynote presentation began at noon. The auditorium was dark, lit only by the massive screen on stage. Marcus walked out to thunderous applause. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus began, his voice amplified by the surround sound. For decades, we have relied on firewalls that can be breached. We have relied on encryption that can be cracked. Today, Sterling introduces the end of cyber warfare. I give you the Citadel. The screen exploded with graphics. Code scrolled rapidly. It was impressive theater. The Citadel uses a proprietary polymorphic engine, Marcus boasted. It changes its own DNA every 3 seconds. It is unhackable. We have tested it against the NSA's standards, and it exceeds them by a factor of 10. Elias sat in the front row, his face impassive. He watched the code snippets flashing on the screen. He recognized the core kernel. It wasn't just similar to the whiteboard. It was a direct lift from a project called Operation Ironclad. Suddenly, a voice boomed from the side of the stage. Unhackable is a dangerous word, Mr. Sterling. The crowd turned. A man in a decorated military uniform walked onto the stage. 4 stars on his shoulder. It was General Thomas Holloway, the vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Marcus looked confused. This wasn't part of the script. General Holloway. What an honor. I didn't know you were. I'm here because the Pentagon monitors all claims of a military-grade encryption, Holloway said, taking a microphone. You claim this system is built on a new architecture? 100% proprietary Sterling key innovation, Marcus said, sweating slightly under the lights. That's interesting, the general said, his voice cold steel. Because when my analysts looked at your patent filing this morning, they noticed something peculiar. The root command structure matches a classified system designed in 1989 for the Strategic Defense Initiative. The crowd murmured. Theft of classified code was a federal crime. That's impossible, Marcus stammered. My team wrote this from scratch. Did they? General Holloway turned to the audience. Or did they scrape legacy code from the public archives of the Department of Defense, assuming no one would recognize the syntax of a dead language? General, I assure you. There is a signature, Holloway interrupted. The original architect of that system had a habit. A digital watermark. He would embed a specific sequence of binary in the header files. Translated to ASCII, it spells a name. The general pointed the remote at the screen. He clicked a button. The flashy Citadel graphics vanished, replaced by a terminal window of raw green code. The general highlighted a string of zeros and ones. 0100101001001001000100010001000100011. The translation appeared below it. The room went dead silent. Marcus stared at the screen. He looked down at the front row. Elias Thorne, the general barked. Front and center. Elias stood up. The joints in his knees popped, a sound lost in the silence of the hall. He buttoned his jacket and walked to the stairs of the stage. He didn't look at Marcus. He looked at the general. General Holloway, a man known for eating kernels for breakfast, snapped a crisp salute. Dr. Thorne, the general said. Elias returned the salute slowly, a muscle memory waking up after decades. General Holloway. You've gotten gray, Tommy. And you've been hard to find, sir, Holloway replied. He turned to the stunned audience. Ladies and gentlemen, you may know him as a security guard. But the United States Department of Defense knows Dr. Elias Thorne as the father of the Aegis Protocol. He is the man who designed the encryption that protects the nuclear launch codes of this country. He went into hiding 30 years ago after his wife passed, wanting a quiet life. Marcus Sterling looked like he was going to be sick. Dr. Thorne, he whispered. Elias finally turned to Marcus. The arrogance was gone from the young CEO's face, replaced by sheer terror. Mr. Sterling, Elias said into the microphone. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of mountains. You didn't build a wall. You took the bricks from my old house and tried to glue them together with sloppy code. That vulnerability I found on your whiteboard? I left that backdoor in the original Aegis system in 1991 as a failsafe, in case the system was ever hijacked. You copied my code so blindly, you copied the intentional flaw. The crowd erupted. Reporters were flashing photos. The live stream chat was moving so fast it was a blur. You invited me here to mock me, Elias continued, stepping closer to Marcus. You wanted to show the old watchman what the future looks like. But son, you can't build the future if you don't respect the past. The fallout was immediate. Sterling's stock plummeted 40% before the market closed. An investigation was launched into intellectual property theft involving government assets. Marcus Sterling was removed as CEO by his board of directors the following morning. Elias didn't go back to the night shift. 2 weeks later, he sat in a different office. This one was inside the Pentagon. General Holloway poured 2 fingers of whiskey into a glass and slid it across the mahogany desk. We need you back, Elias, Holloway said. The cyber threats we're facing now, the Russians, the Chinese, they're using AI. We need the human element. We need the architect. Elias took a sip of the whiskey. It burned, a good burn. I'm an old man, Tommy. I like my quiet evenings. You can name your price. You can build a team. Teach the new generation how to code with discipline, not just copy-paste from Stack Overflow. Elias thought about Marcus. He thought about the arrogance of the new world, assuming that newer meant better, that speed meant quality. He thought about the young engineers like Kevin, who were terrified of making mistakes because they didn't understand the tools they were using. I won't do it for the money, Elias said. Then for what? I want a program, Elias said. An internship program for underprivileged kids. Kids who don't have degrees but have the mind for patterns. Kids who look like me, who get overlooked by the Marcus Sterlings of the world. I want to train them. Holloway smiled. Done. 6 months later. Sterling had been rebranded and restructured. But the real action was happening in a nondescript building in Maryland. A classroom was filled with 20 young men and women. They were diverse, from all walks of life, some from inner cities, some from rural towns. None of them had Ivy League degrees. All of them had potential. At the front of the room stood Elias Thorne. He wasn't wearing a security guard uniform. He was wearing a suit that fit perfectly. He picked up a black marker and walked to the whiteboard. Coding, Elias said, his voice commanding the room, is not about typing fast. It is not about using the newest library. Coding is about logic. It is about structure. And most importantly, it is about integrity. He wrote a single line of code on the board. Print Hello World. He turned to the class. My name is Dr. Thorne. And we are going to build the future, one brick at a time.